Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jordan and thank you so much for clicking on one of my bookish videos. Today I'm going to be filming my June wrap up and July TBR video. It is that time of month to do a wrap up of all of the books I read in June and talk about some of the most anticipated books on my July TBR. June was once again a fantastic reading month for me. I got to read some of my most anticipated new releases, and I'm excited to talk about all of the books that I loved. So if you are interested in seeing me talk about my June wrap up and my July TBR, then keep on watching. So in total in June, I read 19 books total. A lot of them were advanced copies because June and July have a lot of new releases coming out, and I listened to 3 audiobooks fully. I did kind of do a hybrid read for a few of these, but 3 audiobooks and then like 16 physical / hybrid reads. So it was a really good reading month for me. Okay, so I started off June reading one of my most anticipated books of the year, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely love this book. It is one of my favorites. This is a book about Joan, who is a female NASA astronaut. She is one of the first female astronauts in NASA's space shuttle program in the 1980s. She joins this team of astronauts that are coming to the space shuttle program, competing to be the first people into space. During her time training with NASA, she starts to fall in love with one of her teammates, Vanessa. So this is a queer love story, and I just loved Joan's character. She really, throughout the book, has a lot of self-growth and like inner discovery and reckoning with who she is as a person, who she loves, who she wants to be in the world. And I could just really relate to her inner dialogue and struggles kind of with her identity. And it was a beautiful love story. It was an emotional love story. I cried constantly throughout this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Okay, next we have another most anticipated book of the year, and that is Katabasis by R.F. Kong. I was able to read an early copy of this book thanks to Harper Voyager, so thank you to them for the gifted copy. Guys, I was a little nervous going into this book because I have heard mixed early reviews. However, as someone who absolutely loved Babel, I think that is my favorite R.F. Kong book. I've heard the comparisons between Katabasis and Babel, and I was hoping that I was going to enjoy it because of people saying it has similarities. I loved it. I will say I definitely took my time reading it. I tried to just slowly make my way through. There was so much to pick up on, so many different literary references and mythological references. I once again was just amazed at how genius R.F. Kong is. Katabasis follows Alice as she takes her descent into hell, which is what Katabasis means. It is like a literary and mythical trope that means literally like a hero's descent into the underworld or into hell. The way that R.F. Kong took all these different depictions of what the underworld is, what hell is, and intertwined it together and made her own version of hell with all the different layers and took Alice through a journey was so fascinating. It's a book about Alice trying to go into the underworld to save her professor who has died and gone missing, and Alice throughout this book goes on this huge journey trying to deal with a lot of negative self-worth. She's someone who really struggles with depression, and she kind of was thrown into a cycle of depression after a lot of the abuse she suffered from her professor. And so there's a lot of exploration of power dynamics and just like academic self-worth. It was just so interesting. I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars, and I will definitely be rereading when the book comes out in August. Okay, next I started my very special reread of the Summer I Turned Pretty series. I have reread the series so many times in my life, but I like to reread right before a new season of the show comes out, so that way I can like very aggressively annotate, pick up on all of the different scenes and like key iconic scenes and moments in these books so that I know when I go to watch the show what the show is going to have and include. I just love rereading this series. Like, it is so nostalgic to me. It means so much to me. It brings me so much happiness, also a lot of tears. But this first book is just like nostalgia core. Like, it just feels like being a teenager again, falling in love for the first time, trying to figure out who you are. It feels like summer vacation, and I loved it. Obviously, 5 stars. Okay, next for Pride Month, I'd been wanting to read Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert for quite some time. So I did read this book and I really enjoyed it. This is definitely like a rom-com. However, there's a lot of emotional depth in this book, which I loved. It follows Danica, Dani, and Zaf, and the two of them are like co-workers. Zaf like rescues Dani, and a clip of that goes viral. And at the time, Dani does not know that Zaf is this like professional, very famous retired footballer. And so they go viral. And because of that, they decide to basically like fake date. It was just fantastic. Like, I had so much fun reading this. I definitely will be reading more Talia Hibbert books. I really enjoyed it. Definitely has like a comedy side to it. It was very steamy and spicy and fun, but at the same time, it talks a lot about Zaf's like mental health struggles with anxiety and trauma and everything he dealt with his career and football, which I really enjoyed, and I gave this 4 stars. Next, I did another reread that was of Happy Place by Emily Henry. I listened to the audiobook of this one because Julia Whelan narrates, and I genuinely think there is nothing better than an Emily Henry Julia Whelan collaboration. In rereading this book for the first time, I only read it once back when it released, and listening to it, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the Emily Henry effect that every book you read, like your most recent one, is going to be your favorite, but this reread literally like changed me as a person. I think this could be my new favorite Emily Henry book. I really enjoyed this book when it came out. I just like was hit so hard by the second chance romance and the emotions in this book, both with Wynne and Harriet's character. I connected so much to. This is easily her most emotional book, and I felt the emotions the first time I read it. I loved this book when it came out. Like, it is in my top 3, but I was bawling my eyes out on this reread. The quotes were hitting so hard, and I think something about that also is the audiobook. Like, it just made it feel so real to me. So I don't know what my ranking is honestly at this point, but I love this book so much. Okay, so next, again for my Pride TBR, another book I've really wanted to read for a while is Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and I've heard really good things about the audiobook for this one, so that's what I did. I listened to the audiobook thanks to Penguin Random House Audio, and it was fantastic. I can see myself reading the rest of the series. Basically, it is a sapphic romance. Delilah is someone who has been pretty estranged from her family. She lost both her parents at a young age, and her stepmother had to take over raising her. Because of that, Delilah had a lot of emotions growing up and couldn't really bond with her sister, her stepsister Astrid. So in this book, Delilah is forced to come back to her hometown to take pictures for Astrid's wedding after not seeing her sister or her family for a long time. When she's there, she meets Claire, who is one of Astrid's best friends, and there's a lot of lingering resentment among everyone over the way that Delilah treated Astrid, the way that Astrid treated Delilah, but it was so wonderful. I really enjoyed the audiobook so much. I just liked the found family and all of the like emotional depth and work that all the characters had to go through, and I really want to read the rest of the series, so I gave this a 4.5 stars. Okay, next I read A Love Song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. I don't have a physical copy yet, but I will be picking up one because I loved this book. My favorite thing about this book, honestly, was the fact that it is so much focused on arts and like Harlem Renaissance and Black culture in New York City. The book basically follows Ricki Wilde, who is someone who comes from a super wealthy family, and she's always just kind of made her own way. She, in this book, moved moves to New York City to Harlem to try and be this florist and like have her own boutique shop. When she moves there, she starts to encounter this man who basically like seems like a ghost. Like he keeps popping up, he keeps like bringing her into these flashbacks. It turns out that she is indeed meeting this man who is from the past, a ghost of sorts who has basically like come to haunt her, but they develop a really beautiful relationship throughout the book, and you start to learn a lot about his past and how it affects Ricki. I loved Tia Williams' writing so much. It was so beautiful and it was wonderful. I gave it a 4.5 stars. Okay, next I read another advanced copy, and that is Wrath of the Dragons by Olivia Rose Darling. This was gifted to me by Dell Romance, so thank you very much to them. I read Fear of the Flames last year and absolutely loved it. It is a romantasy. It has dragons in it. It's following this queen of sorts, queen of the dragons, Elwyn and Caden, who have a bit of a forbidden romance. I can't really talk too much about the plot of this book without giving away a lot of what happens in the first book, because this is a series, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like I've been in a bit of a romantasy slump recently because a lot of the books and tropes just feel so similar to each other, and I read so much of it I kind of get bored. But I will say this was bingeable for how big of a book it was. I actually like got through it really quickly and it did keep my attention. I really liked the politics and the world building that happens in this book. It definitely is a world building book. The tension between Elwyn and Caden in this book killed me. There was a lot that they had to work through in their relationship, and above all, I was so impressed with Olivia's writing in this book. There were so many beautiful quotes really about grief, love, loss, also about like just like mental health, anxiety, depression that I could really relate to, and I think she killed it with the writing in this one. So I gave this a 4.5 stars. Next, I read If We Were a Movie by Zakiya Jamal. This was gifted to me by Harper Collins and Epic Reads, so thank you so much to them. This book was perfect. If you want a sapphic, fun, young adult romance, I highly recommend this one. I literally binged it in a day, just chilling outside, a nice, fun summer read, and there was a lot of emotional depth to it. It's obviously inspired by the Hannah Montana song. It follows Rochelle and Amira. So Rochelle is this girl who is going into her senior year of high school. She is desperate to go to Penn. She's super ambitious and hardworking, and she kind of has this like enemies relationship with Amira, who was one of her friends growing up. And in this book, they're forced to work together at their like local black movie theater, where they kind of have to like team up to figure out all these issues that are going on at the movie theater throughout the summer, and they start to develop feelings for each other. I just loved it. Like, it felt so nostalgic and fun, and it just was the perfect summer read, the perfect young adult romance, honestly. Thank you to Harper for the free book. Okay, so next I read another advanced copy, and that is Bittersweet by, I believe, Haiti Williams, and this was gifted to me by Valentine Books, so thank you to them. I loved it. This is another debut author that I was just blown away by. It follows Charlie, who is working in the publishing industry. I believe she's like a marketer, so I thought that aspect of like learning a lot of the behind the scenes and dynamics in the publishing industry was super interesting. Charlie is someone who's like fresh into her job at a publishing house, and she meets this super famous male author and they develop chemistry right away. Charlie clearly has a crush on him, and he basically takes her on as his mistress. He is someone who is married, has been married. The entire book is just Charlie being so in love with this man, her going through very hardcore up and downs of deep depressions and terrible thoughts every time that this man basically like leaves her behind or does something mean to her or just shows her that he doesn't actually love her. It was such an interesting way to read about an abusive relationship, not necessarily physically, but just emotionally, and the way that an older, powerful man can abuse his position with with a younger, fresh-faced girl in this industry. I just loved the way that the author wrote Charlie's depression episodes and her mental health. It was so realistic, and the way that she had to be surrounded by her friends and her family to try and take care of her and show her she was loved and pull her out of it, I really related to. So I loved this book. It comes out, I believe, the end of July, and I gave it a 5 stars. I highly recommend it. Okay, continuing on with my Summer I Turned Pretty reread. I reread It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han, and it killed me just as much. I am also rewatching the second season right now, so I think reading it when I'm watching like the scenes, similarly with the first book, really just like brings the book to life. It's so hard because I can picture it in my mind now of like how it affects these characters. And again, I loved it. June was such a good reading month. We have another potential contender for top book of the year, and that is Real by Kennedy Ryan. First of all, a moment for this beautiful cover. So going into reading Kennedy Ryan's books, I had heard a lot about Real, and I kind of had a feeling that this was going to be my favorite of her books. This is definitely my favorite Kennedy Ryan book, and this is definitely one of my new favorite contemporary romance books. So Real follows Neva and Cannon. Basically, Neva is like this newcomer young actress, kind of just like dipping her feet into the waters, and Cannon is this super famous director and producer, and he notices Neva and wants to cast her in his big documentary of this like super famous black icon. And the two of them have chemistry instantly. Cannon is just very reluctant to get into a relationship with an actress on one of his projects when he had a prior relationship blow up with an actress on one of his movies. So they kind of have like this very slow burn, like feeling each other out thing for half of the book, and then they both kind of give in, and it's so clear like how much they love each other. But my favorite part of this book was the chronic illness representation. Neva has lupus, and at the beginning of the book, it's clear that she's someone who really takes care of herself and has managed to handle her lupus in like a very natural way. But as she goes through this project, this super grueling schedule, putting her body through so much rehearsal, dancing, and just the stress of being on a set for crazy hours, her lupus takes a turn and she starts deteriorating. I just thought the way that Kennedy Ryan wrote her chronic illness was so wonderful and so important for so many people. I just loved the way that chronic illness was depicted in this book personally. I think that it was super important to see Neva's kind of reckoning with having to slow down and take care of herself, and watching her go through this sort of emotional journey of realizing like how bad her illness has gotten and her grieving the loss of not being able to do things. I just think it was so incredibly done and written. I loved this book. I gave it a 5 stars, and I need everyone to read it. Okay, next I listened to an advanced copy of These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean, I believe, and this was gifted to me by Penguin Random House Audio, so thank you to them. I have never read one of Sarah MacLean's books before, but I've heard a lot about her. I know she's super big in the historical romance genre, and my understanding is that this was like her debut contemporary romance. I was obsessed. To me, this book definitely leans like a lot more like family drama, character study with like a side plot of romance that kind of grows throughout the book than just like a pure contemporary romance. It follows this character, Alice, who is in the Storms family, and the Storms are the product of this man who is a billionaire who has like completely changed the world and like has its mitts and everything. At the beginning of the book, their father dies, and Alice, who has been estranged from the family for 5 years after having a fallout with her dad, is forced to go back to their island for her dad's like funeral, where she sees her family again for the first time in years. The entire book is just unpacking like all of the anger and resentment and emotions that are tying this family together. They all feel very complex feelings towards their father. They're forced to play play this like final game with their father where they're given this task for a week that they have to complete to get their inheritance. I was fascinated. I was obsessed. I was horrified. I felt like the family dynamics and like complex, complicated feelings that all the siblings had towards their father and their mother was so real. And there was a really good romance in it as well, which I enjoyed. And I gave it 5 stars. So it comes out in July and you should definitely read it. Okay, next I read another incredibly anticipated read for me, and that was Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I was gifted a copy by Avon Books, so thank you to them. This also comes out the end of July, and this is Holly Jackson's adult thriller mystery debut. I was obsessed. I loved it. Holly Jackson for me can do no wrong. Like, I'm not a huge thriller person, but every time she releases a book, I am dying to read it, and I love it every time. It just keeps me completely enthralled. This book follows Jet, and literally, like, in the first chapter of the book, she is almost murdered by someone. That's how the book starts, is that she literally is almost murdered. You think that she died. She wakes up in the hospital and she survives, but you find out that she's going to die in a week because the murderer did something to her brain where she is going to have an aneurysm. It's just a matter of when. And so Jet is determined to solve her own murder because that's what it's going to be and figure out who did this to her. I will say it definitely did give me a Good Girl's Guide to Murder vibes. I feel like Jet had similar vibes to Pip, just both like very ambitious, like in your face, quirky characters. Like they do not care who they step on. They will figure out this mystery and this murder. However, I definitely did feel like this book was darker. So if you want a good thriller mystery this summer, I highly recommend this one. And I gave it a 4.5 stars. Okay, last I read another advanced copy of a book that just released this week, July 1st, and that is A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwen. This was gifted to me by Saga Press, so thank you to them. I love this. This was a book that like I needed in the middle of my like romantasy like slump and just like being a bit over it. This book was marketed as Peaky Blinders meets Six of Crows, and I completely agree with that. The Peaky Blinders vibes in this book was so good. So basically it follows Nina and Patrick. They meet when they're super young. They basically like get to take this like potion, and then it determines for them whether they're an artisan or a crafter, which is like two different sides of basically like this world, like in terms of politics. And they meet when they're super young. Nina kind of finds out that who you are is predetermined by this system, and she takes a potion that she's not supposed to and becomes like one of the most powerful earth charmers and like movers in their world. She then grows up basically with like the artisans and is kind of like their tool and their weapon. Then you find out that there's like this big attack that happens, and she's not really on the side of the artisans and she leaves. And then she finds Patrick again in his little town, and Patrick is essentially the leader of the crafters and the rebellion. The romance was so good. I was so in love with it. The enemies to lovers, but also like Patrick was just so down bad for Nina from the beginning. And I found that the magic system was really cool. This held my attention the entire time, and the way that the book ended with the betrayals that happened, I need the second book immediately. So I gave this 5 stars. I definitely think it's a must-read romantasy of the year. Okay, so that is it for my June wrap-up. So let's move into my July TBR, which I'm gonna run through pretty quick. July is my vacation month. I'm going down the beach for a week, and I definitely am planning to film like a what I read on vacation vlog because I normally just get so much reading done while I'm at the beach. So I have been saving like very specific books for reading at the beach. The vibes are kind of funny. They're not all like romance beach reads, but I don't really care. I just wanted to save like super special books to look forward to reading that week. Right now I'm reading Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is like a sci-fi fantasy book. It is based off of like this indigenous mythological religion, and it's super interesting. I definitely am like taking my time with it because the world is like super unique, the magic system, and I'm really enjoying it. I am also reading reading or rereading will always have Summer by Jenny Han. The show comes out in 2 weeks, season 3, and so I wanted to start my reread now. I am definitely taking my time with this one because I am annotating and tabbing the heck out of it. I think I may be doing some like reactions or comparisons of the show episodes to the book, possibly on YouTube and my Instagram. So I'm trying to like get ready for that. I just love being able to see these iconic scenes come to life in the show. I've already cried a million times reading this. And I decided to pick up Truly Madly Deeply by Alexandria Balaflor. This was gifted to me by Avon Books, so thank you very much to them. This is a queer romance. I believe both of the main characters are bisexual, which I love. And I don't know much about it, but I think it's romance novelist and like a lawyer who fall in love. And that sounds perfect for me. A few other books I'm planning to read are Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I was gifted this by Atria Books, so thank you very much to them. I feel like I'm the last person to read this super popular series, but I have been wanting to read it for a while, and I'm a little nervous because, like I said, I'm in a bit of a romantasy slump right now, but I do have the audiobook and I'm planning to just listen to it as I go throughout the month. Now, let's talk about what I'm going to bring with me and hopefully be reading on vacation. This is super ambitious and also subject to change, but these are like the main books that I really want to read. So, first of all, kind of tradition at this point, I want to reread Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'm debating if I want to listen to the audiobook as I've been doing for my other rereads this year. I have reread this most years at the beach. This, before I reread Happy Place, was my favorite, and I want to reaffirm that or not. And I just love the vibes of reading this. I'm planning to read Between Friends and Lovers. I have heard a lot of really great things about this book. I believe it's like a contemporary romance, and I believe it is also a queer romance and book. So that makes me excited. And again, I just love the cover. And then I'm going to be reading my arc of Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. This was gifted to me by Tor, so thank you very much to them. This comes out in October, but I have had this arc for a while and I've been saving it for the beach. Does this give beach vibes? Absolutely not, but this is one of my most anticipated books of the year and I really just want to read it on vacation. And then two others that I'm planning to read that are other super anticipated releases. I'm going to be reading Good Spirits by BK Borison, which I was gifted a copy of by Avon Books. This is her new series and I just love BK Borison's books so much, and I thought this would be like the perfect romance for the beach. And then I also am going to be reading Coldwire by Chloe Gong. I love Chloe Gong's books so much. I love her fantasies, and this is her dystopian debut. I am so excited. I really have been like loving dystopian this year, and I just feel like Chloe's like writing, and especially if it incorporates romance, which I believe it will, I'm gonna eat it up. Okay, so that is it for this little June wrap up and July TBR video. I hope you enjoyed seeing all the books that I read in June and the books that are on my priority TBR for July. I am super excited for July. I feel like I'm going to read some really fantastic books, especially on my vacation. If you enjoyed this video, I would love if you subscribe for more videos from me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!